So the tenant ID is just a concept to incorporate into the energy log server. And the idea of tenant ID is to avoid putting the direct name
absolute
of
number,
the customer, in the energy log server general object's name. In that sense, when someone would ask, for example, for the list of indices in the system, if we wouldn't have any kind of form of ID that would replace the customer name, then the list of the customer would be available, right? So the tenant ID is just a concept that the goal is to replace the kind of sensitive information in the system. So then we have the tenant log isolation, ensure that each customer log, alerts, dashboards, and reports are separated. So that is strictly related to the index creation. When the mechanism of index creation is deployed, then it is fully automated, right? So the tenants have their own indices, and they access the data only based on their own tenant ID. Then we have the alerts, and the dashboards and the reports are separated. So the dashboards are managed through the object permission. So here, right, we can select the tenant role, and we can give object permission to that tenant. Obviously, they can create their own, in a sense. It can be restricted, but in general, there is no mechanism that would prevent any user for creating their own visualization or dashboard or whatever, right? Because that's within the normal operation of the system. But we can restrict access to the modules which allow you to create those objects. Same with the reports. So when user is creating the report, they can base it on the index pattern they have access to. If we want data from the syslog to be extracted, we can do the syslog -001, for example, or asterisk 001 asterisk. But the report in form of the dashboards is a little easier because it can be delivered through the email as an attachment. The data export cannot be attached to the email because they tend to be big. Reports are either PDF, JPEG, or docx. So they are pretty small, and they can be easily attached to the email. So when we have the email delivery for the tenant, email report would be attached. I just wanted to finish the case with the dashboards, because the dashboards, as a best practice, it's also recommended to have the dashboard per tenant. Right now, we have in the stack management and saved objects, we have the different types of dashboards because of how the saved objects are constructed and depending on each other. In general, it's a good idea to create different dashboards for each tenant, because actually most of the tenants, they don't require the access to the UI. They are mostly interested in the conclusions that they have outsourced the security operation, the SOC and other services, and they are relying on the notification systems from the provider. So for the multi-tenancy role-based access control, we do that through the config module. First, we need to have the role. I have created the role, but I can do it easily from the start. So for example, the role name, I can say that this is the tenant B. I can give the paths are the permission for the specific group of indices, right? So if I do the asterisk 002 asterisk, it would mean that this tenant would have access to all the indices that would have the 002 in the name, right? If we look at how the indices are created, right, that they have the names and the timestamp, and for the best practices, it would be ideal to have the tenant ID in the name of the index. That paths would guarantee the access to all the different indices that have the tenant ID in it.
it might make sense to have a 6-digit number that starts with some zeros, because you don't want it to be mixing up with a date format, you know. Tenant number 2025 is going to have access to everybody's log in 2025, right?
Then we have the methods. The methods are based on the HTTP connection, because that's how all the components communicate with the data nodes. Whether it's a UI, alert, the parser, network probe, whatever, every component of the system is communicating through HTTP protocol. That's why the methods are from the HTTP protocol as well. So here we specify what kind of methods are available for the specific role to use. And here in the applications, you can specify which UI modules are available for that role. So if you are creating the analytical role, then you can just, for example, give access to the dashboard module. So once they will log in, they will have just this dashboard option here and nothing else. Obviously, you have the field includes and excludes. Basically, what it does, it allows different roles to have different permissions for the field. So different roles, different users can look at the same document, but see different fields. So that the most common case is that if you have security related data or financial data, and you don't want to create separate duplicated data sets or duplicated indices for each role, you can give permission to view the same data set. So for example, analytical person or operator, security operator can have access to finance related data, but not in the full scope, because in the finance, maybe there are some user identification number or security number or credit card information or some password or whatever, any sensitive information. And you can actually exclude those fields which are not needed, or include, which is the best practice, to specify which fields are available for that role to be seen. Is the admin user of each tenant able to create additional users with different roles with their individual tenant? No. No, that is always the role of the MSP, always creating users and the roles and additional users. That's the provider responsibility. So once we created the role for tenant B, and now I can create a user for that role, the user tenant B, with some password, obviously, the email, and obviously the UI access. And here are the roles. You can specify multiple roles. So for example, why would tenant have only single role? They can have multiple roles with for example, the role for the analytical person, the role for the security person, or something like that. There can be multiple roles for each tenant. Right. So we have the role, and then we have to select some role as a default. So in this case, that would be the only role that I have selected. And once I submit that, the user is created. And then final aspect, which I've mentioned, is that it is recommended to give access to some objects in the system. So you can use the simplified view, where you only have the dashboards. And the idea is that when you select the dashboard and give access to it, then the dashboard is saying that those are the childs of that dashboard. And if you want to make sure that this dashboard is viewed properly, you would have to give access to those child objects as well. So that's the kind of simplified view where the dashboard is the final element that you manage, but you can switch to the advanced view, which gives you access to individual objects, right? Which are the index patterns, visualizations, and so on. And basically, doesn't really matter which one you will choose. You can give access to it like that, and then save that role. And in this way, you give the object to the permission, and then logging in as this user would give you the access to that. to that objects as well. So in this case, when we gave this tenant B, we gave it the access only for the dashboards, it would make sense to give actual access to some dashboards as well related to that data. You can create a copies of that objects, but you cannot easily change the base fundamental access of that data, so-called index pattern, right? It's not that complicated, but it would require to go in the code. So if I go, for example, like that, then I can change the index pattern, which is based. So it's not dark magic. It's just an additional step that is annoying. So the easiest and the best approach here would be just to create individual visualizations and dashboards for the tenant. Because of how UI is constructed, this is how it has to be. First, create a new index pattern, because I cannot base it on this index pattern. I would have to create a new one. So I go to the stack management, quickly create the new index pattern, which is this one. Okay, so I have my index pattern. Now I can go to the visualization, create visualization, and whatever visualization I need, I can just create. And here I need to base it on this individual index pattern that I have just created. So that would be individual pattern for the user ID.